Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nerds of Legend. I'm Ben. Next to me is Joel and Missy, and below me is Brendan. This week, we're going to be talking about the novella Ilmet and Lankhmar, and if we end up having time, we'll talk about Ship of Shadows, but except for two of us, didn't get to the second book, so we might not talk about that one today.
By who? Who wrote it?
By Fritz Leiber, or Fritz Leiber. Another reminder, we've got another special stream with Darling Creep Show on Saturday at, I don't think, did we say a time? Was it 6 p.m.?
Yeah, 6 would be perfect. So.
It's at 6 p.m., and we'll be streaming until 11 or 10, somewhere around there, whatever we run out of time.
11. 11 is the hard stop.
Yes. Where we'll be continuing our little Dungeons & Dragons campaign we started with her, and...
Possibly. There's a lot to go through, and the way you guys play, maybe not.
I said continuing. I didn't say we'd finish.
I think you said finished.
I thought I said continuing. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm having a stroke right now. We'll never know. So... With that, I don't think I have any other announcements. Other than we'll be talking about the Norse Pantheon next week on Monday. And then other than that, just our regular scheduled Wednesday D&D sessions. And with that, let's get on with the show. Brendan!
Hi.
This was your pick.
Yes.
Start with Ilmet and Lankhmar. And I believe it's 3 minutes on the clock. And does anyone need a timer?
I'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's a
No, we know you well enough. You have a timer.
Yeah.
And go.
All right, so Fritz Leiber, born in Chicago in 1910, is one of the founding authors of the sword and sorcery genre. If you think of Cole the Conqueror, if you think of Robert E. Howard, if you think of Conan the Barbarian, Elric of Melniboné, the other big name, the other big series is Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and their world of Lankhmar. You could even call it a campaign setting because they were so big. They were one of the original D&D campaign settings. You'll see lots of references that were taken from this story, Ilmet and Lankhmar, and the earlier stories in your role-playing games in D&D. The term bugbear was dropped. Fafhrd is a large hulking Norseman turned thief, and the Grey Mouser is a small dexterous thief. And for years, starting in 1939, Fritz Leiber wrote their stories of them sometimes bumbling around Lankhmar, sometimes expertly sneaking around Lankhmar. And this was actually a prequel story written in 1970 about how they first met. So if you read it for the first time and you don't really know the characters, you may be like, hey, they kind of jive really easily. I wonder why. This book was actually, or this novella was written retrospectively. But they jump two bumbling members of the Thieves Guild, Fisif and I think it's Slavius. They both impersonate statues, and they have grease paint on, and they jump members of the Thieves Guild and steal a bunch of their gems, and then basically get drunk. And the Grey Mouser says, hey, want to come over to my place? And they hang out with each other's girlfriends and are essentially dared into going into the Thieves Guild and beheading their Grandmaster for a slight against Fafhrd's girlfriend. Her friends were masquerading as a circus group, and
I wouldn't say it was just a slight. It was for murdering all of Fafhrd's girlfriend's
I mean,
friends.
I was gonna get into that later, but yeah. Basically, they say they're spineless, and they're like, you know what? Fine, we're drunk, but we'll scout it out. They dress up as beggars, and they end up getting way farther in over their heads. And I don't want to spoil the ending. I feel like we can get to the ending as we talk about it. But it starts from this meandering, casual acquaintancy of like, oh hey, we
drunk guys hanging out.
yeah, we pulled off a heist, and oh, your girlfriend's hot. Oh, your girlfriend's hot, and then it kind of spirals down into I would say the tone that you would normally see in the earlier stories. Yeah, so that's essentially the non-spoiler synopsis. It's simple in idea.
I think one of the funny parts is that beginning when they first jump those two guys is that like they had both like set up camp there, like set up the ambush spot in the same spot.
Same idea, same way.
Neither of them knew the other one was there.
Yeah, Yay! All right, so we did make it.
Yeah, you did pretty good with keeping that one.
I feel like you tricked me. Like Ben was at least like forthcoming in his Gaskell Thraka shit. Like this one is a tricky. You tricked me to a D&D fan fiction.
But this is so old.
But this is not a fan fiction. This is like OG. This is like what D&D sprung from. This is you're drinking from the headwaters, Melissa. You're drinking straight from the tap on this one.
It predates chainmail, like what, first ed D&D by like 4 or 5 years, I think.
Yeah, by quite a bit. It was rough. Like this, normally I'm not a person who's going to be like, that's too many details. No, I got lost in the details in this one. It was a lot. This is a very, very thick novella.
Chunky.
I feel like
I should have been able to go through it in like one sitting. And no, this thing took several. I had to download it and read it and then go back and audiobook it. Like this one took prep work.
Yeah.
This was a thick book.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one where it was almost a half a page just describing this woman's ermine scarf.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big ass paragraph, like describing this white furry scarf. I'm like, this is a novella. You shouldn't be wasting time with that many
definitely
details.
trying to hit a word count on this one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's like, this is a 25,000 word document.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
You got paid by the word.
He got paid by the word.
Fritz was 60 at the time when he wrote Ilmet.
Oh, so he was senile and just meandering.
Not senile. He was established, so he was actually at a point where he was publishing books. Similar to Asimov, in his heyday, 39 to like the 40s, if you wanted to make any money writing, you were publishing in
novels.
Yeah, in magazines.
Yeah.
So not only does he come from a period of education that was more verbose than our generation and even our parents' generations, but he uses terms like sotto voce, Italian for soft voice. He uses secundus as secondly. Yeah. Like there's a lot of there's multiple real world languages that he just drops casually. Italian, Latin. I'm just like, all right, like, this is a little, I could see how this could be chunky for people.
Reading back on it, I could definitely tell it was like from that earlier time period. It was very like sort of, you could kind of tell, like there's almost been like a little bit of like a lingual drift, like like since like, what was this, the 60s?
70 was this one, but he'd been writing at this point.
There's almost been like a lingual drift to like tend towards more like simpler language. I would guess, just to like get a point across easier. I don't know, maybe the literary major could speak to that, but
that was directed.
I know, I wasn't paying attention.
No, but that's.
I was saying how there's almost like been like a language, like a lingual drift from like when
Ben's so used to you ignoring him, he's like, I'll just say it again. It's fine.
Actually, I was surprised by that one. I'm a little hurt. I was trying to be all lit major about it, and you just like checked out on me.
I'm so tired. I'm just really tired. Yeah, I mean, it's not. Tale of Two Cities is one of my favorite books, right? Like, I'm not afraid of dense things. Like, I'm not afraid of like very wordy descriptions. So it wasn't that hard for me to follow. It felt like, like to me, it was more like, it almost reminded me of like the Canterbury Tales, like stories you would tell as you're traveling along the the road, or you're at a bar and you're sitting there and you're like retelling these stories. Like that's the kind of vibe I got. Which now, having that background of like, this is pre D&D fan fiction. Okay, so we'll say that it's pre. Like that this is a foundation of it. That makes sense from hearing what you guys do, or say about the stories and the kind of like quests and things that you take, like that it really follows it. So the density of the language didn't really bother me. Like the story wasn't that hard for me to follow either. But
for those of you that missed it, she very derisively patted me like, it's okay, dummy, under the table. But yeah, so go fuck yourself.
But I mean, it was fine. Like it was just it was a short story about like a little hijink.
Yeah,
little hijink. Like it sounded like for the first, I don't know, hour of the story, like it sounded like all they were doing was just working themselves up and just getting hammered. Yes, handing themselves into like, you should do this, you should do that. And then now that you give the synopsis, yeah, that's exactly what they were doing.
I feel like you're used to like the pacing of like a novel, Joel, where it like kind of like has
absolutely.
like this. But like I know novellas sort of have like a rising, like a lot of times is like setting the set piece and then like have a really short climax.
Yeah,
and then it just
when it got to that point,
resolves.
It got to that point quick.
Yeah, like you called me last night and you're like, I hate this book. I'm like slogging through it. And then I'm like, dude, just like let it like finish it out. You'll see where it's going. And you're like, okay, fine.
Like 10 minutes later, I was like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
Like, they're tying their legs together, using their swords as crutches, sneaking in, and you're like, this escalated so quickly.
It was like it really did almost read like looking. It almost read like a D&D session, like one shot.
Oh my gosh, you could see in between the dialogue where they rolled the dice.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, all right, apply makeup. Okay, charisma roll.
They failed their charisma roll against the princess chick.
Yeah,
and then and then like,
I mean, even the part where like the guards. Yeah. Where they're walking by and the guards are like,
pass their deception check.
And they're like, yeah, but they're not fooling children, they're fooling adults.
Perception check, and it's like, oh, like pretend you're blind and smear dirt on yourself, and move silently check. It was just very it lent itself to a lot of skill rolls.
Or like when the fog was lifting, they're like, huh. Weird, it's getting pretty clear out for this late at night, and then they just like move on, so they failed their perception check to see that the fog was all purposefully moving in one direction.
Yeah.
See, but so now, Ben, I want you to take notes on this. Brendan, like, this was like a trick, but it was like an enjoyable one. Like it wasn't like a like not like.
Yes, she's getting there.
The second one, so let's not.
I started it. I did not get far into it.
It was an adventure story.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, and it was short. It was short enough. It was a trick, but it wasn't one that I.
It was not Gas Coal Thraka, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But that wasn't like, that was a very highly specific thing. Like it, without the backstory of knowing that this is where a lot of that comes from, it still stands on its own. Without like Gaskell, like Thraka, like you need that background of.
You need
like,
tons of background. Yeah, you need to do like. You need to do like a master's thesis.
It's like what I was telling. Like it's like we talked about it during the Gaz episode, but like I did not pick a good Warhammer book for you to like be introduced into that sort of setting. Like, and I know you don't want to ever read another Warhammer book again.
Well, I don't think
we lost another one.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a good entry point to like one of the biggest pieces of the fandom is let me buy this tiny piece of figurine that you have to paint. Like,
see, that's how I introduced. That's so like I got into Warhammer by reading the books. I didn't get into Warhammer by.
You got into Warhammer by Adeptus Ridiculous.
Yes, I got into Warhammer by listening to a podcast about Warhammer, and then they started doing book reviews. So then I got into those books and then went from there.
But, yeah, because I remember you tried on, I think it was on the wedding, like the night of our wedding, we're driving back and you're like, check this book out. You just grabbed my phone and downloaded Brutal Cunning.
No, you told me.
That's not how I remember it. Shut up, Ben.
You told me to pick a book and I was like, fine, Brutal Cunning.
I remember wanting to talk about something much more highbrow and you were like, absolutely not, go fuck yourself. And then you made me listen to that. Joel, which I still haven't finished it. I'm about halfway through it.
Can you hear me? You're an asshole.
I was watching a video on YouTube recently about the fact that Games Workshop has a problem in that they're about to expand very quickly. They got a streaming service that's finally starting to take off. The 10th edition of 40K is coming out. Cavill's going to be spearheading their show, which if he's executive producer, it's going to be faithful to the source material.
So what's...
This has nothing to do with Fritz Leiber.
Yes, it does.
I sidetracked you.
Yeah,
but
this
just
has nothing to do with Fritz Leiber.
I was gonna do the thing.
Get away with the trick. The trick was
you read it. Yes, he did. You 100% finished it. Yeah, absolutely, he did. He was successful.
I finished both of them.
You finished both of them.
Well, Gaskell, I didn't finish the other one.
No, you did finish it.
You finished.
We both didn't finish it. There were 2 books. You did fall for one.
A caveat: Ship of Shadows is not Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser.
It's sci-fi.
It's sci-fi. So
I saw like a summary. There were like vampires and witches, and I was a little bummed that I didn't read it. But it wasn't on audiobook.
It's not the way you're looking at it, though. Well, we can talk about Ship of Shadows if you guys want to hear about it. But I don't think we're finished with this book yet.
No, we're not, because it's got a swerve.
Yeah.
And I think you can't really have a major factor of the sword and sorcery genre is a general
just the best.
a general enmity and derision of magic, a fear of magic. Of if you think of Hyperborea, if you think of the Robert E. Howard version of magic, magic is dark and dangerous, and if you're not consumed by the spirits you summon, you're this evil dude that sucks the life force out of others. The Dark Sun campaign setting in D&D, the idea of the preservers, those who realize that magic takes life out of the earth, and those that would the Templars that use the power given them by dragons to suck life out of others. Like, that comes from Robert E. Howard and this sort of parasitic, vampiric, dark idea of magic. And
that's a fantastic. I like that kind of magic. Like, there's it comes with the price, but not that like that over the top like the craft rule of 3 nonsense. And they just
no.
Like it's like it destroys your environment. That was one of the reasons I liked. I know when they would do the Magic the Gathering books, they had that where like it actually destroyed the environment that it drew on.
The Witcher,
the Phyrexians in MTG. Yeah,
you have to maintain the balance.
Exactly. Yeah. So Conan's like whenever you read the comics or the books, he's always like sorcerers. Like, I can't stand them. And you think of Elric of Melniboné, Michael Moorcock. Elric, if you know 40K, if you know Warhammer, that's why I was tying it in. The Chaos Gods heavily are drawn from Moorcock's books because Elric is cursed. He has his cursed blade, and he's always invoking the Chaos Gods to help him through stuff. He's this cursed character. He loses his love to his evil cousin, I think, and so he's like, he's got no girl. He's got no castle anymore because his society's destroyed. He's just got his buddy Moonglum, who's kind of like Sancho Panza, and just his evil cursed sword. And, so this is no different.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking.
I did not.
I'm following. You spaced out again, Missy. Come on.
He's talking about Warhammer and how the magic
in this book.
No. All right. From the top.
We'll do a next step after the Norse gods. We'll do a dive into Warhammer so you can get your rocks off because you're starting to die. You're starting to fall into like. You're like, I haven't painted in weeks. I am on court. This.
Listeners, back me up. I'm tying in the fact that the sword and sorcery genre is mainly determined by Conan, like Robert E. Howard, Elric of
somehow we made it to the 40th century.
No, yes, because oh my gosh, you guys got
look at that! You've upset the baby.
The Chaos Gods are taken from Michael Moorcock, the Slaanesh.
Not even the author of this book.
No, but it's the genre. Magic bad, magic evil, scary.
I get it.
God damn.
Yeah, you've upset Missy and the baby. Magic's not bad. It's wonderful.
I was following Brendan. Thank you for your history lesson on...
Ben's got my back. Viewers have my back.
On fantasy and swords.
Thank you, Ben. Next week, we're going to go to Adepticon, and we're going to buy miniatures, and we're going to play...
We're going to be nerds.
We're going to be nerds. We're going to play Warhammer, and we're going to play Battletech. It's going to be great. and you guys aren't invited. They don't care. They're perfect.
No, I was actually invited. You guys invited
Actually,
me.
we did
weeks
invite
ago.
Joel.
We did invite Joel. 100%. Joel, you want to hang out in my basement and play games?
Yeah. So shut up. Yeah, you've upset the baby. She doesn't. She said magic is good.
Anyway, back to the book. So this is quite the
Way back.
He's like, because I have the microphone.
So yeah, Pfefford and the Grey Mouser. Pfefford's at the time lady friend has this huge vendetta against the Thieves Guild for slaughtering her, torturing, killing her friends for trying to essentially practice thievery without officially paying their dues. Mm-hmm. And they all get drunk, and they're like, and the Grey Mouser's girlfriend, I guess you could call her, was a daughter of an evil duke that he slayed with black magic, and so he's placating her with gifts and trinkets, and she's very naive, and she gets drunk, and she's like, "You guys are spineless. If you don't go and take this guy's head like you would tell your girlfriend, Pfefford."
What do you mean you just knocked these thieves out? You didn't kill them like you said you were going to kill every thief, and like,
yeah.
And Pfefford
I do love how those thieves were the ones that sold them out at the end.
And like Pfefford can't admit that, like,
and took our clothes.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, we get to it. Well, all right, I get it. We're drunk, so we'll just scout it out. We won't do anything crazy." And then of course everything goes to shit. But yeah, they make their disguise check. Mm-hmm. And they cover them. They swaddle their blades in like rat skin, so they look like they're hobbling along. They have their cloaks. They put eye black on and smear ash and grease. Alms, my lord. And they sneak their way in. Not after a very attractive young prostitute on a rich man's arm. Gives him a gold piece. Yeah, gives him a gold piece and kisses him. And
like, damn, maybe we should do this for a living.
Yeah, and he's like, no.
They weren't part of the Beggars Guild, were they? They were just.
They were not. They're
just regular ass con men.
Yeah.
Not supposed to be begging if you don't pay your dues. So
if you're not in the guild. Which it's funny that they had, I did like that, like all the I like the stories where the guilds rule everything, and there's a guild for everything. I've always liked those stories.
Yeah,
it sounded like the Beggars Guild was a division of the Thieves Guild. So basically, like every beggar you see in Lankhmar is like in the actually low key in the employ of the Thieves Guild.
Yeah, they looked, but the Thieves Guild looked at the Beggars Guild kind of like, oh, you know. Like they're the clearance aisle of the Thieves Guild Walmart.
Oh, you guys are the IT department. Yeah, you're in the Yeah. But so Lankhmar is covered in grease and soot and ash, and it's run by money grubbing and greasy palms. And Pfefford brings this up several times. He's like, in the north you could just be like, yo, I'm gonna duel you. And you can just have crimes of passion and revenge, and that's just the way it is. But in Lankhmar that doesn't fly that way. Mm-hmm. In fact, the guilds have so much power. You have, I don't know if you noticed this the first time you read, but they have Pimp Street and Whore Street.
Yeah, they do. Pimp and Whore Street.
Take a left at Gold and Whore, and
Cash.
Cash and Pimp. And the street names, which I forgot that the first time I read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get into the Thieves Guild. What they promise their girlfriends to relax. We'll be right back. For having been written in 1970, and for these stories,
there's no problematic language. So well done, Brendan.
I was gonna say, from like the guy started writing these stories, and Fritz Leiber wrote these in 39 onwards. I felt like compared to Robert E. Howard, I felt like the women were written believably as female characters. Mm-hmm.
I did read some of his critiques from other people that read him, and they said that he does write very good female characters. Like he does write. They're not, most of the stuff at that point in time is usually just they're pretty much like set pieces. Yeah. Like I need a pair of boobs in the background that's going to ask for help. There you go. Put a woman in there, and these didn't. They had some designs on them, and they had some plans. Like there was some depth to these characters, which is weird to see in a fantasy novella, especially an old one. Mm-hmm. And these characters they were filled with flaws. Like they are not, it's another one. I'm reading in the masterclass. There's like how to describe how to build the hero, and the archetype that's easiest to fall into is like the solitary warrior that just is like the greatest of the great.
Yeah.
And I just got thrown up on by a baby, which is kind of awesome because I'm wearing black and it really showed up. So she's pleased with herself. The joys of parenting.
Yeah, but yeah,
so anyways,
this is a very good point, Joel.
These characters, they had that real feel, and as we've all said, including Melissa, who has said this felt like a campaign. Like you could feel it felt like drunken spitballing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Right. What we're gonna do, and then the DM
I'm gonna go get drunk at the pub.
Right, and then the DM drops you go in a room and it looks like this, and they're like, hold the fuck up, what's going on in here?
Yeah.
You know?
Especially when they get in the Thieves Guild and they're like, oh, okay, that's where they train all the kids how to like pickpocket and shit. And then they like go on to the next one and it's like, oh, this is like the planning chamber where we like plan all our heists and thievery.
And then they get into the one where they're like, then they find the wizard and they're like, what the hell's that? You know?
Yeah.
And they see it's familiar and they're like, I hate this. I hate this.
Oh, I screwed up.
This is my thing. So that was the moment. Sword and sorcery books. Magic is to be hated, reviled, and feared. It's dirty and weird. Magic is bad, and that's where it starts.
But not all swords and sorcery, but you're right. It does fall into those old tropes, like every 80s and early 80s, late 70s fantasy movie. The sorcerer is always the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Fire and Ice, Necron. Yep. The Ralph Bakshi animated movie.
To have my millennial show, quit trying to make fetch happen. Quit trying to bring this back. None of you. That's all.
Mean Girls.
Yes.
Yeah,
we knew the reference.
Yeah.
We're also millennials, Melissa.
We're all married. Our wives made us all watch Mean Girls.
Your husband is the only Gen Xer in the room.
Yeah, that's true.
To all of our Gen X fans, Nirvana is great. Please continue.
Yes, that's what you're doing. That really panders to my entire generation. Thanks for just bringing it all home for us.
See, it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
And Joel's like, I'm back in again, baby.
Yeah.
So basically they end up proceeding through the guild. They kind of get caught by the guild master, and the guild master's like, I don't know you. It's like, what the hell are you doing, like, peeping on this dude's ritual? And then they're like, he starts bringing people in. He's like, hey, beggar master, do you know these guys? He's like,
wait a second, gotta roll for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, give me a history check.
And the beggar master looks him down. And he's like, I don't know him. He's like, yes, but you're the day masters. As the night master's going and I guess getting. It sounded like he was off to, have a sexual encounter happen. But he's like, yes, he's been gone for a week. I've been covering the night shift as well for this past week. And they're like, oh shit. And then finally the guys that they like clubbed at the beginning show up and they're like, that's the guys. And then they're like, cheese it. And then they're like trying to kill the guildmaster, fuck it up. And then they're just like, get out of here. And then just like run across.
Felt like such a Scooby-Doo escape scene at the end where they're like, why are you carrying the ladder? Throw it down. It was so well written as like a group of idiots that are like trying, and it's like it had the feel of like, we're trying to express so that if we do this cool thing, they'll touch our wieners. Yeah. And then after they screw it up, they're like, screw it.
Pretty much.
Not die.
Yeah, and then they get back and they found out that basically the ritual that they had been watching that they could have interrupted was being used to kill their lady friends, and they find their dead lady friends, and then they burn the house down and go on a killing spree in the Thieves Guild, where they go and kill the sorcerer, and then they don't even feel like killing the guildmaster anymore. They just walk out of town.
Yeah. So about that. So when you were watching Rogue One, if you were, and you're like, none of these characters are going to be in episode 4. They're probably going to have to kill them all off in a blaze of glory. And then they do. If you had known the series, you're like, hey, these ladies aren't around in all of the original story. They need agency. They need to be able to traipse across the earth, killing and smooching their way across the planet. Well, yeah. So evil magic takes out their well-written, unique, different ladies, and the first time I read that, I was absolutely crushed.
Yeah,
I was so connected.
Yeah.
They were a major foil because like Fafford kind of thinks with his biceps, and the Grey Mouser's always trying to please everybody, and he's always trying to speak with this verbose language and try to impress
everybody. It's supposed to be like the noble thief sort of.
Yeah.
Lola Levine says a perfect point of names I wouldn't even try to pronounce in my head. That was my first rage point with this book.
The nice part is with what
in the fuck is his name?
The cool part is with Fafford.
I'm pretty sure they're cats.
The cool part is with Fafford in dialogue in the book, he actually says pronounced Fafford. Like it gives the spelling.
Yeah, but it was so many. Like the names are so rough, and I was like, "What is happening here?"
Yeah.
Like, and then
the one thing I will say,
like he definitely chose high fantasy names. Like he definitely was like, yeah, what are the names? Well, there's going to be a shitload of Y's and S's, and that's what we're going to do. Bad guy's got a Z in his name.
The one thing I will say about this book is the ending is like telegraphed so hard.
Yeah.
Like as soon as they talk about like, oh, this is the wizard's familiar, he's just around to help us out. It's like, oh no. When they were like, did you guys see that marmoset?
The callback to that greasy little thing. Yeah.
I was like, oh no, they didn't catch it. And then as soon as they leave, and I was like, oh no.
What was really funny is the whole time they're getting drunk, the Grey Mouser is like, Fafford, do you honestly think that some sort of like street marmot has been tracking us, is going to go back to the Thieves Guild and tell an extremely powerful wizard where we are and then try to kill us? That's absurd. And then it's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Especially
one for the giant Norse guy.
Especially since they get back there and then see the ritual, and he's like, and they see the familiar going like, yes, go, my master, yes. And then he's like, they're like, oh shit.
Oh no.
That was again. That was a good fun piece of like childhood imagery of like the Dark Crystal and that kind of the same kind of like nonsensical evil with like, what are you doing? Evil. You know, you're
very Skeletor. Very Skeletor.
Oh.
Your microphone just got cursed by black magic.
Joel, you just said Beetlejuice 3 times or something. Your mic and camera are tweaking.
Did you sign a pact with a Sumerian god? I'm thinking he did.
Yeah. Your audio's messing up hard.
Be that a lesson to our viewers. Dark magic is not safe. It will destroy your microphone and possibly your soul. Is Missy insinuating that their infant child has latent magic powers? Did you notice that at the end?
Yeah, she's like, fix it, child.
It's like Willow, like the baby is the savior of the kingdom. Well, that's a whole... Yeah, you know what? Yo, Willow, evil, dirty old magic lady wanting to, like, destroy... kill all pretty people!
I mean, like, Black Cauldron...
Black Cauldron with the Horned King. Yeah. The guy who does magic...
you're back.
If it's not Gandalf, the guy that does magic in these stories is usually crusty and evil.
Yeah.
Crusty, evil, and gross.
What even...
They need to control the latent magic powers of their infant child.
Yeah. So, Joel, you're supposed to have the good internet of the three of us.
Conan the Barbarian says never trust sorcerers, and well...
That was funny. I was like, oh, mine's fucking up now, too.
One by one, they were picked off.
Yeah. My internet is good. It just when it failed quickly. Back. Yeah.
Hey. I love how transfixed she is by the microphone at all times.
Yeah, because it changes colors. It's the greatest thing in the world for her. But no, it even other than Gandalf, like most of the magic in Lord of the Rings is still kind of evil.
Yeah.
You know, Radagast is not. He's not quite evil, but he's insane.
You got the bird poop. Yeah.
Yeah, like literally, he walks around covered in animal feces. Like, I don't know about you, but that is crazy. And I don't know about the blue wizards, but like for the most part, all
apologies to our druids in the audience.
Yeah.
It's I'm not going to go down the Lord of the Rings tangent
I think you're correct. Like it's a more recent development where magic is not viewed as something that is only done in the back alleys by insidious people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is. I don't know when that changed. Probably. I mean, there's always been that sort of like, oh, you've got like the good wizards.
That would be a fun
wizards.
episode to take a look at. That'd be a fun episode in the future to take a look at. Is like the history of magic.
Oh man, that's a whole nother tangent. So, really quick, King James of King James Bible fame, right? The first monarch to unite the Scottish and English thrones, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, he did do a translation of the Bible, but he also wrote a book on magic, and that is far more interesting to me. Mm. For the life of me, I can't find an English translation because I think he wrote it in Latin. But King James wrote a manual on magic. It has the natural, what is it called? Natural magic is what we call today the sciences. There was
what's going on?
Thaumaturgy. So magic will be a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. That'd be fascinating.
We'll have to look into that at some point.
Yes.
So, did anyone else have any more thoughts they needed to provide on Ilmet and Lankhmar?
No, and I think the gods of the gods of Wi-Fi are telling us to wrap it up. So.
All right.
Did you like it, Bill? Did you guys like it?
Yeah.
By the end of it, you enjoyed it?
I'm convinced. All right. Joy or derision have fallen way to general indifference. I think it's time. I think we wrapped up on Ilmet and Lankhmar.
It was a good story. I enjoyed it, and you can see where it was a building block of a lot of things that we take for granted in our sword and sorcery genres now.
Yeah, 19.
I liked it. It was easy to read. It was easy to.
I hate you so much.
I'm just gonna give Missy a high five. I was an English tutor, and she used a lit major, so yeah, it's not bad.
No, I liked it. I don't know that I would follow the series, but it was a quick and easy read, and it was. Where his detail, like he was like, it got too detailed. I probably just spaced out.
It got lost in the details. Like they spent so much time describing the setting of where you're at. But now when you say filter it through the eyes of like a campaign, like it makes perfect sense. No. He was trying to do a one shot real quick, Yeah,
it's a one shot campaign. Fritz Leiber described the counter of the bar. The rings of the mugs looked like they were drawn by a mad geometrist.
Yeah,
or something along those lines.
See it
right
in my head.
There was one passage that Ben Semius, who's reading
what was it?
Right here. My dear, Vlana said, sympathetically patting Ivrian's wrist.
Because
at some time in any good party, all men who are really men simply have to go out. It's extremely stupid, but it's in their nature and can't be dodged. Believe me.
I just love that because basically the whole thing is like they were like drinking at their at Mouser's house, and they're like they run out of booze after they tell their like war stories, and then they're like, well, we gotta go get more beer. Let's go to the pub. And then she says that, and like Mouser's like lady is like, why do you have to go? And then it's like at some point at any party, the men who are men must go and get more beer. And I was like, God damn it! Every
time we hang out,
it's happened so many times where I'm like, God damn it, we're out of beer. Well, Brendan, saddle up.
The second Wolverine comic book I ever read was the 1997 annual, and the last story in that, Wolverine goes on a beer run, and by the time he gets back, Captain America and Natasha are asleep in his apartment. The guy going on a beer run, that idea of an adventure probably came from this for the first time, but I'd seen it so many times as a kid. Maybe not with actual beer. In the case of Wolverine, it was absolutely actual beer, but just this idea, the genesis of so many fantasy sword and sorcery ideas come from Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and that's why I picked this novella.
Yeah, I like that because it was sort of also was like set this sort of scene of like, all right, like Fafhrd and Mouse are like, do you think we actually have to worry about that familiar that we didn't wipe out?
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
That won't come back.
No, it's all good. Don't worry about it, Fafhrd. Because Fafhr's probably less drunk than Mouser because Fafhr's this giant hulking dude. And Mouser's like, no. We got this. It's all fine. We took care of it. Do you really think that guy's like rat is going to find us and then track it back and we'll actually be able to tell him where we're hiding? No.
Nah. So 1970 Nebula Award for Best Novella, 1971 Hugo for Best Novella. So both these novellas were Hugo winners, I saw. Yeah, Ship of Shadows is way different.
Yeah.
Way different.
Are you guys going to be covering that one?
I think we got time to talk about it.
Okay, well, I did not read it, and I'm going to go help
Later,
help Melissa with the baby. And
okay.
So we're starting at 6 or 7 on Saturday.
Let's message Creep, and we'll get that.
He just messaged. That's why I'm asking.
Okay. I believe we said... I thought we talked about 6, but maybe look back on the chat. We'll text about it. Yeah, Joel's got to go on a beer run real quick. We're good.
Yeah, I got to go on a beer run. The book for the next week, we're going to do Red Rising.
2 weeks.
And I'm pretty excited about this one. My nephew has been suggesting this one for about forever.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll be doing Red Rising and... what's the author's name?
That's what I'm getting right
now.
This book was actually recommended to me previously. A friend of my wife's is a high school
Pierce
teacher.
Pierce Brown by Red Rising by Pierce Brown.
It is available on Scribd.
Yes.
Yeah. So this book was like wildfire through the Milwaukee high school system. A friend of my wife's teaches high school chemistry. Everyone was reading this book. So
we'll see you, Joel.
Yep. See you later.
Come back from that beer run.
All right. So the second book, novella, is Ship of Shadows. Which, can you give us a brief synopsis of that one?
This one was trippy, man.
It is very much a trippy book.
It reminded me of a choose your own adventure called Space Vampires.
Okay, yeah.
Where you're like an interstellar cop and you have to hunt vampires that feed on human blood, but then they only are deteriorated by solar radiation. So like they're like a science fiction villain, but not a biblical one. And
it almost sounded like these people get like they're not necessarily vampires; they just get like high on blood or something.
Well, see, you'd say that, but then it was a choose your own adventure for 12-year-olds, so they drew them like.
No, I'm talking about Ship of Shadows.
Oh yeah, no. Well, that's the thing. That's what took me back to this. Yeah. Is like this choose your own adventure. They probably took the reference from this because he's like a Bela Lugosi vampire in space, and you've got like a phaser. And I remember reading that, and I read Ship of Shadows, and all I could think about was the choose your own adventure where you're hunting down vampires in space because of the very similar premise of like getting high on blood. These creatures. What was it? The protagonist was Spar, I think was the guy's name.
Spar.
Yeah. There's like the idea of witches and vampires, but the entire thing takes place on a ship,
which you gradually get revealed to you throughout the book.
Yeah, it's almost like a single.
So basically, the protagonist is a. The book is told from the point of view of a protagonist who we found out is like almost blind, but he can make out like colors, like he can see like everything looks like smudgy like blurs of colors to him, and also he has no teeth for some reason.
Right. Yeah, no teeth.
He
just hoovers down his food.
And he has no memory. So he has no memory of before he woke up in this bar. Which eventually we find out from a doctor that he has befriended that it was caused by some illness that racked the ship. Which causes blindness, it causes your teeth to fall out, it causes your hair to fall out. Oh, also he's bald. And it causes memory loss. So basically it just like wrecks your shit.
Kind of sounds like a 1960s catechism workbook for Catholics on like what happens if you masturbate too much.
Yeah, at least his teeth were in arms, Lola. You're right.
What happened to you?
Yeah. So basically, it's this kid who he decides to be like get sober because there's these like pubs throughout the ship which like people go to get basically high as fuck off of moon mist, which I'm starting to think is basically like the fuel for the ship.
Yeah, it had similar effects to like skooma in Elder Scrolls or something.
Like it basically like just basically makes you happy and just like out of your mind for a little bit and never. And so like he has like a friendship with this like ship's like horror person, and then there's like the angry bar owner that just like basically tolerates his existence.
Yeah, and he's like slapping everyone around.
And then there's the antagonist who is known as Crown, and he's the coroner for the ship. He's the one that's in charge of disposing of bodies. Yeah. Who is also like the ship's pimp or something.
Yeah, like prescribes, like he's got a harem and he like prescribes the women out.
Yeah,
and it's very.
It goes through and basically Spar decides at the beginning of the book that he's going to get sober and stop taking moon mist. So he starts getting these like things that he thinks are hallucinations, and oh my, maybe okay, no, okay, Lola, but. Basically, basically they go through and Lola said, "Prescribe me, Daddy," and we go through and
get some of that Brave New World Soma. Get the good stuff.
So they go through. He's gradually getting more sober, and then he does the doctor a favor because Crown comes back looking for the doctor's bag. That he had stolen early in the night, but like Spar noticed that, had stolen it on behalf of the doctor, and then hid it from Crown and returned it to the doctor the next day. The doctor was like, "Anything you can do for me to get this, I would like. What can I do? Like, how can I save you?" Or like, what can I do for you? Anything you want. And he's like, "Get me new teeth and new eyes, Doc." And he's like, "I can't do that. That would require medicine that's beyond our knowledge." And then basically like they go through this whole rigmarole, and then the doc gives him dentures and glasses. But like the doctor's gone. He just finds the doctor's like stuff that he left behind. So Spar eventually goes off in search of the doctor. Spar gets kidnapped eventually by Crown, and when he wakes up, Crown's he can see that Crown is a vampire, and he has like a harem of vampires
chugging the blood,
and they're chugging the blood, and then Spar like breaks out and then bites Crown and kills him, and then basically like you find out that. And that's how basically he gets his glasses and finds out they're on a ship, and then you find out at the end of the book that there were two like colony ships that left Earth after like some sort of disaster, and there's constant references to the corpse light and then like normal light on behalf of Spar, but he's basically seeing the sun and the moon as the ship like goes around the moon, and he ends up. We find out at the end of the book that he's from the other ship, and he had came over there with a team to find out what happened to the other ship because they lost communication because there was this disease that racked everyone's memory, and now no one knows like how they got on there or how to like work any of the equipment. And they're all like zombies basically because they don't remember anything, and they're just like getting high and like doing their like pre-assigned tasks that they remember how to do. But that's it. Basically like the ship's on emergency power, just like doing its thing. And like Spar was the leader of the team. He came over there with the doctor and some other chick, and like they were set there to like fix it. And then they got captured, and Spar got this disease that like wiped his memory, and his teeth and hair fell out, and all this stuff. So like the whole thing is like the doctor trying to figure out how to fix Spar, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're in charge now." So like
basically the story.
Yeah, and that's the story ends. I was like, well, that was sudden. So like this one I wasn't as big of a fan of because I feel like it was very like until
it felt like yes and. It was just like all these new things were like, oh, there's vampires. Oh yeah, oh by the way, yeah, he's got no teeth, he can barely see, and he's bald from a disease.
Also the cats talk.
Yeah, the cats talk. Oh yeah, he's got amnesia. Oh, they're in space. They're on a giant ship. Oh, there's 2 of them. Oh yeah, and he's supposed to run everything, but he doesn't remember. It was just kind of like things. The way information was doled out was a little crazy. I will say, you brought up an earlier point about the novella format having to sort of has a different chronology.
Yeah.
Than a novel.
It's all about like setting the scene, and then once they get the scene set and like get everyone kind of like in position, then it's just like, all right, go, done. Like.
Yeah, I had never read this before. I was very familiar with Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. Mm-hmm. Even in high school, there was a Dark Horse Comics made a graphic novel version of Ilmet and Lankhmar. So I'd read the comic before I'd even read Fritz Leiber. I don't even know which one is correct. But I had never read his sci-fi before. I actually appreciated this story when I reached the ending because the recurring sci-fi idea.
I got to the end of it and I was like, oh shit, it's like a colony ship. And it's like realizing like this one was very not clear on what was going on. Cause like I feel like it was sort of like trying to buck the normal sci-fi conceit and like hold on to that sort of like thing right until the end of like, oh, the big reveal is like he's on a ship. But
kind of felt like a point and click adventure game.
I realized partway through that I was like, it started out reading like a sci-fi, and then they started about like all these like shifts, and like you can tell there's like no gravity and whatnot. And I was like, this is a sci-fi, but it's like everyone's acting like fantasy people, and then you find out it's like, oh shit, like
It was a novel idea of that time period. Well, actually, I actually don't know when this was written, but I know that when Fritz was active, like 70s, late 60s, the idea, like the book that you chose about the Dragon Knights, I'm blanking.
Yeah, so it was kind of like the Dragon Riders of Pern. It kind of fits into that same sort of thing where it's like a lost humanity goes to another colony and like forgets who they are because of some disaster, and like forgets their origins and how to run the technology beyond like very basic in basic ways. And I was gonna say that I've definitely seen this trope elsewhere. I'm blanking on it, but like I've definitely seen this like lost colony ship sort of like we forgot.
Yeah.
Like, we've been orbiting Earth for so long that we don't know what's going on anymore. Like,
the most glaring examples to me, more recently, for maybe our age group, would be WALL-E, and going back, Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, there's like, a little bit of Planet of the Apes. Yeah,
doesn't realize it's Earth until the very end. Doesn't realize that his so-called enemies were the simians of Earth that had advanced. WALL-E, the idea that there's all this technology that makes their lives easier, but no one knows how to use it or run it, and they don't even remember why they're in space. They're just sort of there. Yeah. And the ability of subsistence, the ability to maintain life has become more important than the ability to comprehend life or improve life. It's just, we're here in space surviving.
Yeah.
And with very little understanding as to why they got there, where they're going, kind of thing.
Do you know if this book is part of like a greater sort of like Lieber universe thing?
Lieberverse. It was a little difficult to look this one up. There's another book called Ship of Shadows, and I had to sort of flex the Google foo. All the examples of this tale were actually in collections. Okay. So there were a lot of science fiction compendiums.
Yeah.
which makes me think he probably wrote it for a magazine or a
It's
journal.
probably like a one shot for like Cosmos or something, or one of those, or Nebula, or one of those other sci-fi magazines of yesteryear.
Okay, so Ship of Shadows won the Hugo and was nominated for the Nebula. 82 looks like. So yeah, this is a story that the real payoff was as you approach the ending. The idea that so much of their circumstances were due to just blindly going through states of narcotic fuzziness, and just like the main idea that technology has reduced.
It sounded like there had been some kind of like witch hunt that had gone on, and like there were like rumors of vampires because people randomly disappear, but the ship's large enough that it can be like you can like lose a person on it. Like,
yeah,
they're like, oh, maybe they just went to some other part of the ship or whatever and like moved on, and is very good about sort of like drip feeding you stuff, because it's like this from the point of view of this dude who's been like is basically like slowly coming out of like coming back into sobriety, and like sort of like can finally, and then there's a moment where you can like finally see things like how the real life is for the first time or something. That almost is what this book felt like, is like a euphemism for like someone who's like coming out of like a journey to sobriety sort of thing.
Yeah. Enlightenment mentally is sort of following his development physically, at least like getting dentures and clearing his mind and discovering, it's a story of recovery, not only for him but for the people. And
finally, like basically, like it's kind of like, was the cat a hallucination the entire time, like that the cat was speaking, because it was like and suddenly...
it was a sorcerer's familiar.
Yeah. Not in this book.
No, that was a callback. That was a callback. Yeah. I wasn't really sure if in this example it was a drug-induced hallucination or not. I think it was sort of
the initial
that way.
Yeah. So like, to answer your question, Lola, the initial cause of his predicament was he got some sort of disease when he came to this ship, which those are the symptoms of it. It causes your hair to fall out. It causes you to go blind, like almost go blind, lose your teeth, lose your memory,
amnesia,
basically he doesn't remember anything until he like got well again, and then you're like, I don't remember my life. No, so like the disease is its own thing, and then the drug use is another thing that he probably did to cope with, like, I don't remember who I am. I have no teeth. I can't see anything. I can only live in this bar. I'm gonna just get high out of my mind for a while.
Yeah, it reminded me of like the gigantic Slurpee drinks in WALL-E.
Yeah, because I could tell it was basically like I could envision the like everything, like all the drugs they got were like given out like, all right, I'm gonna turn the tap on, suck from the straw, or it was or they'd get like pouches of it.
Yeah. So metaphorically, you could think about it as that was like the impediment to his self-enlightenment and his discovery of where he was. Don't worry about it. Just get high. Like don't worry about where you are. Just your teeth are gone, your hair's out. Just get high. It's
presumed that his like not co-conspirators, but like his other team were like trying to figure out how to like wake him back up without getting everyone's attention, because there's just all concerned with like witches and vampires and stuff. So they can't like openly be like, Spar, come with me. Like we can get it. Like, this is what we do. They have to like figure out how to like break him out of that because he becomes like somehow indentured to this like bar owner guy who ends up like saving them later.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the other bar owner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can't think of his name.
The one who doesn't run the Eyes Wide Shut cabal of space vampires.
Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
This is a it's a very weird novella, and it was a very interesting like thought sort of experiment of like what would happen if like this crazy disease happened on some colony ship that racked the population, and nobody could remember what their origin were. And then they're like, hey, if you suck from this like tube, you get really high.
Yeah, pretty much.
Presumably, they're drinking the ship fuel.
I really like that theory. That's just the stuff that makes it go. Is
the stuff that makes the ship go is the stuff that they're just drinking. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like Ship of Shadows. I don't think I enjoyed this one. It was definitely like a.
I can see in my mind's eye Joel hating it.
Yeah, Joel would have not liked it.
I can just see him hating it.
Because it was, again, like, this was probably even worse than the other one, where all of a sudden it was like everything, all the action happens in like the last like 3 pages, and then it's done. And you're like, where's the resolution? Is this done? And I feel like that's like the big thing. Like, I've read some like sci-fi and fantasy novellas, and it's always like that. Like, the book always ends, the novella always ends with some kind of like cliffhanger, or like everything's happy in the end. But like, mostly because like a lot of times they're writing it like that because they're wanting to like be able to sell the next part to like another sci-fi magazine or whatever.
The episodic
like
format,
that's how like Foundation happened, was like Asimov like wrote Foundation in parts and like sold those pieces, and so like each part ends with like a little like cliffhanger on it, and then he's like, well, I have the next one if you want it, you know. And then they finally got compended into like one full novel as opposed to these novellas or parts. But so I'd be interested to know if this has like any sort of continuation, or if there was like a beginning.
If it was a one-off or not.
I
think if you wanted to see our review of Foundation, it was in one of our previous reviews. I think that this lends to the strength of Asimov's writing, that it was a macro scale book. There is no true protagonist because it covers centuries. It's almost like sci-fi The Wire.
Each section had its own protagonist.
Well, yeah, but it's very self-contained. You know, like it's what, there's five time periods, maybe 6 as I recall. And so you have maybe the individual protagonist for each portion, but there's really this overarching idea through Foundation, at least for the first book, which is the one we reviewed.
Yeah, so basically, Lola, it's established that I wouldn't say he's stealing it. It's kind of established that there's like these pubs of some kind that each person has like the control of the thing, and then at night they like set guards out to like defend from like vampires or whatever for it. It's there's a lot that goes on in this novella that it's almost hard to explain because there's so much like weird shit that like you'd have to. I almost need to read it again to like notice the stuff that's pointed out by it.
Ilmet and Lankhmar is 2 guys getting drunk, and then their girlfriends tell them to like go on a dangerous mission. This was like
he probably was, Lily. He probably was on.
Yeah. This was a whole different. This really felt like System Shock, like a point-and-click adventure game, like Planescape Torments, just like these early mid-90s PC games like Beneath the Steel Sky, where you just like your character wakes up with amnesia, you're in a mysterious place, and you need to like navigate and discover and talk to people.
Figure out what happened, how am I here, why am I here, how do I get back?
Yeah. It starts at almost square zero compared to square one, where he's just like, who am I and stuff, and then it just rapidly expands because it's a novella. There's only so much time and paper you have.
It's kind of like almost kind of like a BioShock thing where you find out that you've gone through the cycle before, and like your code phrase is the "would you kindly" or whatever, and
it's very it's micro and it goes to macro. It's like smaller in scale than Ilmet and Lankhmar, and then it ends much wider in scale.
Basically, the world expands as Spar's like knowledge and like senses return. Like, so the world expands every time.
against sobriety.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a story about enlightenment, not only for Spar but for the humans on the ship, and I think it's that metaphorical sense that is what got it the Hugo.
Yeah. So with that, I think we're pretty much done talking these out. Some good choices again. If anyone's watching, or in 2 weeks we'll be doing Red Rising by, was that Pierce Brown? Is that what it was?
Yes. I believe it's YA. I think it is.
It's a little bit YA. I can't remember what the book is about, but Joel's talked about it before. So we'll be doing that one. Next week we'll be doing some Norse Pantheon fun stuff, and then we'll be continuing our campaign on Wednesdays. And then again on Saturday we'll be doing our special stream with Darling Creep Show, where we'll be continuing that D&T campaign. Who knows if we'll finish it, but we'll see. And with that, thanks everybody. We'll see you again on Wednesday.